This is NBA referee Pat Fraher. In Jesus' name, I serve.
Welcome to Christian Athletic Ministry Podcast, a podcast for officials, athletes, coaches, chaplains, and anyone interested in the sports ministry. We hope our conversations will inspire you and give a glimpse of how God's people can continue to participate in the sport they love, to serve God in the name of Jesus.
Hello! Welcome to another episode of Christian Athletic Ministry Podcast. Medyo matagal yung bakasyon ko, no? But I am back and I hope and pray that you will continue to support the podcast. Today, I am delighted to have him with us on this episode. We are grateful for his time and we are blessed to have him as a guest. And it's also a pleasure for me to know that he shares my faith, our faith. So without further ado, let us welcome NBA referee Pat Fraher. Welcome, Pat. How are you today?
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
To kick things off, could you share a bit about your childhood? Because we want to get to know more about you.
I have one brother. He's a year younger than I am. We both went to Catholic grade school where we played sports, and we went to a public high school. Pretty normal childhood.
What is sport in your childhood? I mean, were you playing sports? Were you a varsity?
Yeah, I played 3 sports. I played football. I played basketball through my junior year in high school, and I also played golf. Every season, as the weather changed, so did my sports.
And where is your faith during your childhood? I know you said you're in a Catholic school, but in my intro I said we share the same faith. So were you Catholic until high school or?
Yeah, I went to a Catholic grade school, so it was kindergarten through 8th grade. I would say that I checked all the boxes. I knew all of my creeds and all of my prayers and everything that I needed to memorize. I ended up coming out of 8th grade knowing a lot about God, but just not knowing him personally yet.
Since you're a referee, can you take us back to your very first game? What age did you start officiating? And if there's a person who influenced you to pursue officiating?
Yeah, my dad was a referee, and I would say he was the first person that really got my interest up. A lot of people think that he pushed refereeing onto me, but that's not true. I went to him and asked him if I could try it. My first game I did, I was 15 years old, so I was in 9th grade, and the game was an 8th grade game, so I was like 1 year older than the players were.
That's a little early. In here in the Philippines, I don't know anyone who officiates at 15. Well, most started after their basketball years, So I really think 15 is young, really young. Have you watched his game?
Yeah, I would go to his games when I was little, and I wouldn't even watch the game. I would climb under the bleachers, and I wouldn't pay attention. But at some age, I started paying attention to the game. And one of his partners that he worked a lot of games with, both high school and college games, was a guy named Kenny Mauer. Kenny was the first NBA referee from the state of Minnesota, where I live. I met Kenny when I was probably 6 years old. So between Kenny and my dad, those two were the biggest mentors that I had.
Nice. And can you take me to your first ever game when you were 15? How was it?
I don't remember much about it other than the fact that I was really nervous and I didn't have my own uniform. So I was using hand-me-downs. I had my dad's shirt, which was too big. I was wearing a pair of his pants, which were too big. I had to drill some new holes in the belt. And in fact, I didn't even have black shoes. I had white shoes on. So if you can imagine a referee with black and white stripes, pants that are too big for him, and white shoes, that was me.
But did you ever attended a camp before officiating at 15? How did you learn to officiate just by watching your dad?
Yeah, I did not attend my first camp until I was 19. So I did not attend any camps before I started. I I basically just learned everything that I could from my dad, and watching him study the rules and practice his signals, and we would talk rules and watch other games. So it was basically I was homeschooled, if you will.
That's cool. What were the first challenges or difficulties you experienced in your first years? So 15, from what age did you get into a formal camp?
Well, I would say that the biggest challenges came from the fact that I was young, which on one hand was a positive because I had plenty of time to learn. But on the other hand, players and coaches and assigners, they didn't really take me seriously when I was that young. And I don't blame them. I probably wouldn't either. I had to earn people's respect. And that was a challenge. But on the other hand, it was also a positive because I had plenty of time to learn from my mistakes, which were a lot. You know, I like to tell other younger referees if there's any reason why I'm any good at this, it's because I've made a ton of mistakes.
And now, how many years of experience did you have as an official before you joined NBA?
That would be 12 years. So I started at 15 and I got hired in the NBA at 27. I spent 7 years in the minor leagues from age 20 to 27. The last four of those seven, I also refereed during the summer in the WNBA.
Okay, so how did you get in the NBA? Did you apply for NBA? Did they scout you?
Well, when you're in the minor leagues as well as the WNBA, the NBA is always looking for candidates and prospects to potentially hire. So being in those leagues, you knew that people were looking. But when they start bringing you to summer camp, then you know that it's getting serious. And I think my third year in the minors, I started going to summer camp. So I was fortunate. I knew that they were looking at me, and I mean, it still took another 4 years, but that's kind of how my route went.
Could you share with us your experiences during your first few years officiating in the NBA? Specifically, were there any challenges or moments of intimidation you faced during these times, and how did you overcome it?
The challenges are basically the same challenges I had when I first started, and that's being young. You're just basically at another level with the same challenge. So it was earning respect from players and coaches for a 27-year-old that only looked probably 22. You know, made a ton of mistakes, but I was lucky that the league and management was patient with me, allowed me to learn from my mistakes, and then slowly but surely you start gaining the respect of players and coaches as they get to know you, and of course, you know, hopefully you're learning from what you did wrong last time so you don't do it again. That was the biggest challenge. You know, now that I'm in my 22nd year, you know, I enjoy mentoring the new referees because it doesn't seem long ago that I was in their shoes.
Have you ever experienced mistreatment or felt that you weren't treated fairly as a basketball official? If so, can you describe about it? If it's okay, describe the situation and how you handled it.
Was I treated fairly? I don't think I could say that I was ever not treated fairly. So I don't know if that I mean, I don't know if that applies to the NBA. The stories that stick out as far as getting myself in trouble, like there was a summer pro-am game that I ended up throwing out one of the players for punching another player, and he got upset with me and was waiting for me after the game as I went to my car. That one sticks out, but other than that, you know, the security is really good with the NBA, and you know, we always feel like we're treated very well.
Nice one. When I started doing this ministry, I told my friends that, you know, this is a life-threatening profession because of the mistreatment given to us by players and coaches and even fans, you know. So How are you handling the fans, by the way? I read a title in a referee magazine that you do not only officiate the players and the coaches, but you also officiate the crowd, the fans. So, is there any advice you can give us?
As far as the fans go, I would say that it kind of depends on what level you're doing. So if you're doing a high school game, you're right. You are somewhat responsible for when the fans get out of hand. And there's certain guidelines depending on what league that you work as far as what they can and can't do. In the NBA, it's similar. There's a code of conduct that the fans can't cross. Profanity, racial stuff, interfering with teams' huddles, stuff like that. And when those things rarely do occur, then we have to handle that. Now we ourselves don't handle it. We go through security to handle that. But I guess advice for referees at the high school level or other levels, it's difficult, and I feel for you because you may not have security backing you up. Hopefully, at a high school game, you'll have somebody that's in charge of the building that can back you up. But it like when I look at some of the AAU basketball here in the States, it can get pretty crazy with parents and people coming out of the stands. And next thing you know, there's a giant fight and there's no one to stop it. So, those are difficult situations, which, really I've never been in. So I guess I don't have too much advice for that level, but I would think you'd have to be careful picking and choosing which battles that you're gonna choose to fight with the fans.
How do you prepare for a game? Was it different before? And was it different now that you're in the NBA? How do you prepare for a game?
Well, before the NBA, I would prepare on different levels. So you have the mechanics level of where you're supposed to be. You want to be in the right spot, and rotation. When should I rotate? Where should I be looking? All basic stuff. And obviously, I would want to prepare for that. Then as you go up in levels, you learn more about the players in your league. So I'll just go to the NBA, all the way to the NBA first. I know who's on the roster every night. I know who's the main players of each team. I know who the leading scorers are. I know who does what for the team and why they're important for both teams. And that's important. Not that it changes how we call the game, but what it does is it prepares you not to be surprised by anything. If you know who the leading scorer is, it's not rocket science to figure out that the ball somehow is going to get to that person. And that person obviously shoots a lot. So you get ahead of it and you get to referee the defense sooner, and you don't get surprised by things.
Nice. I think it's one of the advantages if you're refereeing a pro game because you referee the same referees like if you're a freelance. Anyways, what do you think is the most rewarding aspect of being a referee and being in the NBA as a whole?
It's like being a school teacher. I love the off season. I love finally being with my family for after being away for 6, 7, 8 months, without seeing them 25 days a month. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. I like my job, but I love my off season.
That's good. Now that you mention it, can you tell us how is our referee schedule look like? NBA referee look like in a month?
We get our schedule 1 month in advance. Typically, I'll have probably about 13 games, which means I'm gone probably about 25 days each month. So I'll get 5 days at home, sprinkled within the month, which is just enough time to come home, do laundry, repack, and leave again. So not very exciting.
I heard in one of your interviews while I was researching on you, you said that an official should concentrate on improvement over advancement. Can you elaborate more on that? I think it's the same as my, well, it's not the same, but my mentor Jesse Thompson says that because they always say that there's a shortage of officials, and he says no, there's no shortage of officials. There's shortage of good officials, because I think officials are focusing more on advancement rather than improvement. So I like what you said, that they should concentrate on their improvement. So can you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, that's actually a great question for this time of year with March Madness coming up. It's a fun time of year. It's our biggest national championship for the college level. Having a lot of college referee friends, they, you know, first of all referees would fall under that phrase as far as looking to advance. And I would caution them against that. I would say they should concentrate on improvement versus advancement for their own confidence level. So let's say that you weren't prioritizing improvement and it was all about advancement, and now you don't advance. Your confidence level would be hurt because you didn't make it to where you thought or you wanted to make it to. Now, in reality, you probably didn't deserve it, but it now in the flip side is if you concentrated as a referee on improvement, then no matter what your assigner or your boss decides at the end of your season, as far as postseason or future assignments, you can still keep your confidence level high because you know that you've been putting in the work and you're watching tape and you're improving and you're studying and you're putting in the work, as they say. Well, regardless of what happens in your career, you can still keep your confidence high because you're in control of your improvement. You're not in control of your advancement. So they like to tell us, and it's true, to control what you can control, and that goes along with you can control your improvement, but not your advancement.
Wow, nice words. While I have many questions about your career as an official, let's move on to discuss your faith. Can you share with us more about your relationship with God since you met Him?
Yeah, well, like I said, coming out of school, I knew a lot about him. I just didn't know him personally. When you come out of school, obviously everything's new. The freedom is new. So I people have a tendency when they get some freedom to maybe go too far, and which I did. So I started enjoying my freedom, and God took a back seat. So I started wandering away, drifting away from Him. Started pursuing everything that the world tells you that you should pursue, worldly stuff, the five P's: power, pleasure, possessions, you name it. That was what I chased. It was funny because, God allowed me to get everything that I thought I wanted, and the NBA being one of them. And it wasn't until about 16 years into the league that I realized that, all of that stuff is empty. And to make a long story short, that's how I came back. It was after finding out that, everything the world tells you, it isn't all that.
How did it change you? How has your faith impacted your approach in officiating?
I would say before coming back, my officiating career was all about me. It was about not only improvement, but my advancement, my status, my reputation. After, once you meet the Lord, everything turns from being about you to being about Him. So instead of living my will, now I'm living His will. Instead of pursuing what I wanted to do, now I'm pursuing what I believe He wants me to do. So yeah, everything changes. I like to say I work for Him now.
Have there been any challenging moments where you had to stand by your beliefs as an official?
It's a good question. Yeah, I mean, that could be every night. When people want to, let's say after the game, and they want to go out, they want to drink, they want to party, they want to get in trouble. You have a choice as to whether you go with them or not. I have before, and now it's different. So now you're in a way you stand out because they also remember the days you went with, and now things are different. So you can't help but to let people know that you've changed.
Yes, it exudes in your aura. Have you ever had the opportunity to share your faith with players or coaches during your time as an official?
In little ways, yes. I try to pay attention to who the players and coaches who are Christian are, and in my own little way, I'll get to them at some point and just give them some encouragement. And tell them, hey, keep being a witness. You're doing a great job, and they appreciate that because it's hard out there. I mean, it's
Mhm.
uh, yeah, it's difficult sometimes.
Okay, how do you stay grounded in your faith while dealing with the pressures of being an official?
I stay grounded by, I would say, keeping your eyes on the prize, right? So it goes back to what do you value? If you value what the world says you should value, then you're setting yourself up for a bumpy ride. But if you value what what faith gives you as far as an eternal reward versus an earthly reward, then you at that point you don't have any bad days anymore. Now you may have some difficult days, but there are no more bad days after that because that all this is temporary and it will be worth it. So I guess that's how I stay grounded no matter what's going on in my life.
And that God is always in control, right?
Amen.
How do you stay connected with God?
Well, I would say, how do you stay connected with anybody? You got to talk to them, right? So it's an ongoing conversation with me. The Apostle Paul says, "Pray without ceasing." I never knew what that meant before, but now I do.
All right. So, what advice would you give to a fellow official who may be struggling to balance their faith and professional responsibilities?
A good question. I would say that I would ask yourself another question first, and that is, why do you do what you do? Are you doing it for your glory, for your will, or are you doing it for His glory and His will? And once you get that question right, then it everything else gets straightened out. Because I'm paraphrasing, but it goes something like, no matter what you do it for the glory of God. And so whether you're a school teacher or a referee or a farmer, what you do is you do it for Him. Once you get your priorities straight, then that will straighten things out.
Just like what you said, right? God is our boss. All right. Although I still have some questions I'd like to discuss with Pat, we do not have enough time. So we will just schedule part two of our conversation with him. This time kasi, I also wanted to give some time and share referee Pat with some of the local referees we invited on this call as well. Pat maybe is the closest we can get to NBA. So I am sure our local referees are also excited to meet him and ask him questions. So in this part of the podcast, we'll be accepting some questions from our visitors.
As part of your ministry, do you also have your own like sports ministry in your area? Do you conduct training for the young ones who are aspiring to be just like you?
Let's see, I don't have my own personal ministry at this point. I'm a member of SOS, which is Sports Officials Surrendered. They're the ones that have put on the ref conference, REF, Referees Embracing Faith, the last couple years since 2018, I believe. There's a there's a Monday night devotional call where there'll be some Bible studies, some discussion, some messages given from time to time, and I try to get on those as well. So right now I'm kind of supporting those ministries. Haven't really been called to my own ministry yet, but we'll see what happens.
Was it a long process, your transition period from going to NBA? Because I believe it's the same job, but it could be a larger scale. Was there ever a transition period for you? Like, this is my job now. I am confident with what I am doing. I'm not scared of the other coaches, the players. I'm not intimidated by them anymore.
I would say, I mean, it varies for people, but I would say on average, it's about it's about 5 years before you start feeling comfortable. Or at least for me. I'll just speak for myself. I'd say 5 years. We joke about it, but when you first come in the league, no one knows your name. So, people that may look like you, all of a sudden you get called their names. And when you know that when they start calling you by your name, that people are starting to feel comfortable with you.
What about the advent of social media? Do you ever get the bashing from trolls or from the fans? Do you ever look at the social media and search your name and see what their reactions are?
No, I try to stay away from that. Now sometimes you can't because it's so big that it's out there and eventually it will find you. But no, I tell my family and my friends, don't Google me. Don't and if you do, then don't believe what you read because not all of it's true and it's just it's a scary place out there.
Do you think that could also affect your officiating? Because that could be mentally exhausting for your part.
Yeah, you're right. I have enough things to worry about besides what they think.
There's a question here for you, Pat. How does you feel when you got your first game in the NBA?
I was excited and scared at the same time, which what I learned from it was like when I teach younger referees, I'll ask them, are you excited or are you nervous? Because there's a difference. And some of them don't know what to say. Some say excited, some say nervous. But the ones who say nervous, I just remind them that the physical feelings between being excited and being nervous are actually the same. So you get the butterflies in your stomach and the adrenaline, but the psychological aspects of being nervous and excited are different. So some people psychologically freeze up or they don't function as well when they're nervous, but when you're excited you can still stay sharp psychologically. So if you have a choice between being excited or nervous, choose excited every time.
Is it the same feeling when you did your finals game in the NBA?
Yes, same feeling. In fact, that's probably when I had to take my own advice the most because the let's just say the lights on that stage are pretty bright. So the last thing you want to do is trip and fall off of it. But it was exciting, which is another reason why faith is important. When you know that you're not there alone and that if you're living his will, you can't fail, then it's pretty easy to or it's easier to let go and let God.
Okay, there's another question, Pat. Have you ever officiated with Dick Bavetta? Do you know how old is Dick Bavetta now?
Well, first part of the question, yes, I have worked a lot of games with Dick Pavetta, and he's a legend. He's a legend of the game. He worked, I think, his last year in the NBA. He was 74 years old, which I don't think anyone will ever come close to that in the future. So he's his career is very special, and he made it to the Hall of Fame. So you would think that it's pretty special.
Wow, 74. Do you plan on staying until that age?
Well,
Do you
no.
get fired in the NBA if you're too old to run?
Well, you need to be able to get up and down the floor, obviously, to do your job. So health is a big part of it. Do I plan on refereeing until I'm 74? No, I'm 49 right now, and I'm hoping for another good 10 years, hopefully.
How old is your youngest referee?
The youngest ever was hired at 23. He's no longer on staff, but a couple people have been hired at 25. I would say that's our youngest.
Mhm. How many ladies in the NBA?
I believe we have 8.
Is there a time that you wanted to just switch career?
It's natural for newer referees to have doubts early in their career. My seventh year, I would say, yeah, I had some doubts because I wasn't in the playoffs yet. So my career wasn't advancing fast as I'd like it to, and I had to be patient. I would say that, you're going to have to figure out, do you still love it? If you love it, then I would say stick with it. If you don't love it anymore, then why are you doing it?
Okay, there's also another question. Here in the Philippines, as I told you earlier, there's a lot of referee groups. They're getting leagues, collegiate league, like that. Is that also same in the US? Or the leagues are recruiting the referees? You don't have to be in a group to be recruited.
Like the NBA, for example. But I would also say for college as well. They're always looking for prospects where they find the majority of their prospects um, are in camp. So, um, like each college um, conference, is what we call them, they'll host their own camp, and then they're always looking for referees out of the camps. The NBA does something similar, um, just on a bigger scale. So I would say both of them look for referees through the camp system.
I just want to ask, when are you guys? Can you give me a tip when you guys are just joking around and when you guys are serious? Yeah, because sometimes I'm having a hard time when because most of my colleagues are men, so sometimes I'm confused when they are just kidding or when they are serious. It's about work. Yun. Yeah, that's my question.
It's a good question. I think that comes from getting to know people. So um, even myself, people sometimes need to need to get to know um, my sense of humor and sarcastic. And um, at first, they may not know that I'm being sarcastic, but eventually, I'll let them
Yeah.
know. Kidding. So as you get comfortable with these people, you might even wanna ask, with a smile on your face, are you kidding or are you serious?
This is a good question, Pat. Secret to your long career.
I would say two things: health. I've been lucky with my health, and humility, health and humility. So this job, if you're around long enough, will humble you. So if you're arrogant, you're setting yourself up for a hard fall. But it's okay to be confident. So be confident, but not arrogant. Be humble, and hope that you have good health.
We wanted to express our gratitude to NBA referee Pat Fraher. Thank you for allowing us to get to know you a bit. To our listeners, we hope you enjoyed this first interview with Pat. And please wait for the second part. Again, this is Christian Athletic Ministry Podcast. In Jesus' name, we serve. Bye, everyone.